Hi, I'm Brian, author of Always in Doubt. You might remember seeing me practically spamming you on Twitter and asked yourself, why is he always bald or wearing a hat? Well, there's not a good answer for that. I figured I'd go ahead and gear up to do some promotion for the holidays. I was thinking to myself, if I were looking for a gift for someone and didn't want to spend more than, say, $13 plus shipping and handling, would I get them some sort of designer sock? No. Maybe a book. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. There's a book I wrote called Always in Doubt. It's available on Amazon.com. You can find it next to a lot of smaller ebooks. Ebooks are harder to wrap, so you might want to go with the paper book if you're going to make a gift out of it. But I thought I'd remind you, especially if it's somebody who you know on Twitter, which then you can make a little story out of it. The story could go, so I know a guy who wrote a book, and I have the book, and here's the book, Merry Christmas. No. Well, find an excuse to buy the book, because frankly, I'm about 2 or 3 weeks from moving into my parents' basement, and no, that's not a good reason to go buy a book. I don't have a whole lot to say here. I really am just sort of winging it. I've been winging it the whole time. I threw together a website. I wung it. You can't wung something. I winged it. Got lucky. It's a really good website. I wrote a book. I was winging it. Got lucky. It was a really good book. The little books, the little books leave a little bit to be desired, probably because they're not very long. My bad. But actually, they're companion books to the big book. I figure if you get through the big book and you haven't had enough, well, you can go back and have a little more. It's like going up for that second trip to the buffet. You don't get as much steak as the first time around, but you want a little more. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want a little more, there's a couple little mini books. S7. I want to see some interest in S7. I think for my first fiction book, it's pretty damn good. I don't know if you personally have written a fiction book. If you have, and I've not read it, I can't compare them. So that's not fair, and don't do that. It's a really interesting story. It may not be as well told as, say, 50 Shades of whatever that one was. But as a rule, I try not to make comparative works. I don't try and make things that are similar to what other people have made. I actually walked through what it would be like. And I have a fairly active imagination when I'm not suppressing it in meditation. So I was sort of going through the steps and thinking, if you woke up on an alien ship and they told you the whole world was gone, what would that be like? What would you actually experience? How would you tackle the language barrier? How would you cope with the stress of that? What would you do? And before I knew it, I was writing, and I was writing fast. When I went back over it to edit it, I realized I was a terrible editor. I've had help editing some of the other books. This one, I think I added a couple periods, maybe a couple commas. May have added too many commas. You'll have to be the judge of that. But the story is good. It has elements from things like Firefly and Star Trek The Next Generation, things like that, but it's certainly not in any way based on any of those works. I grew up on those kind of shows. I love those kind of shows. And I used to really get very into thinking about it, daydreaming about it. I was that kid. So this is going to become a series of books very quickly. And if you get a chance, check it out. Now, that one's not available in paperback, but if I see some interest in it, you better believe it will. I'm kind of hoping that that's going to take some of this writing stuff in a whole different direction. And meanwhile, Yes, this is what I look like with no hat and with some hair. Thinning, but some hair. Hey, thanks for your time.